Hello, my name is Frank Christensen and I'm the coordinator of officials for IFAF in Europe. This is the second of 6 training tapes dealing with block below the waist. Today we're looking at the variety that happens more than 5 yards down the field. So we're going to look at some game film with clips where the block is 5 yards down the field or maybe not, and we're going to look at how to handle that also in terms of philosophy. But before we get to the game film, let's have a look at what the rulebook and the MOFO have to say. In the rulebook, we start with 232 by defining block below the waist. A block below the waist is a block in which the force of the initial contact is below the waist of an opponent who has one or both feet on the ground. When in question, the contact is below the waist. B, a blocker who makes contact above the waist and then slides below the waist has not blocked below the waist. If the blocker first contacts the opponent's player's hands at the waist or above, it is a legal above the waist block. Rule 916A deals with block below the waist, and the exception that's relevant for this training tape is exception 1. Teammate players may not block below the waist when the block occurs 5 yards or more beyond the neutral zone. In the MOFO, we start with section 3.3 contact fouls. 4 deals with blocking below the waist, and B says, for the first 3 seconds after the snap, when in question, the ball has not left the tackle box. Thereafter, when in question, the ball has left the tackle box. And E goes on to say, remember that it is the direction related to the opponent's area of concentration, not the point of contact, that determines whether a block below the waist is directed from the front or not. And finally, when in doubt principles 45 says a block below the waist occurred before, not after, the ball left the tackle box. And that was the book. Now let's have a look at some game film. In this first clip, we're looking at the slot back closest to the camera. So we'll notice that the line of scrimmage is the full yard line, and since we're looking at the blocks 5 yards beyond, that is our reference point in all of these. So now he's more than 5 yards down the field, and here comes the low block. So that is something that is illegal, and we need to call. This being a back judge key, this would be the back judge call, and we are going to call it even though this turns into a tackle for a loss, because as we all know, these block below the waist are safety fouls. Again, we're looking at the slot back closest to the screen, the back judge key, and the line of scrimmage is the -2, so that is our reference. Again, so here is a block that is actually inside of the 5 yard belt. So here the contact happens at about 3.5 maybe yards down the field. So this would be compared to the other one, this would be a legal block because it happens before 5 yards. Here we're also looking at the slot back to the short side of the field, if you will, and we'll notice again that the ball is on the full yard line, so we have our reference point 5 yards down the field. Now this is going to be a legal block, and it illustrates a trick that you can use sometimes. It doesn't work all the time, but it works here. So if we see here, our reference point is the full yard line. So the block happens very, very close to the full yard line. The trick is for a back judge or a deep wing to be watching from 15, 20, maybe 25 yards away with a bad angle to see, was this block at 4.9 or at 5.1 yards down the field. That can be tricky. But certainly when we have a full yard line here, we can use the trick to see, well, where is he lying afterwards? So here we have the receiver lying at 4 yards, and the defender is also inside the 5-yard belt. So both of these players are short of the 5-yard line, which makes it very unlikely, and I use that word on purpose, it makes it very unlikely that the block happened more than 5 yards down the field. So if you have doubts, you see this block and you're thinking, whoa, that was close to 5 yards, and you're still thinking about it right now. Now you can see both players, and especially the receiver, is short of the 5-yard line. So if you want to lean on that, you should leave it alone and not call it. Now again, this is a trick that you can use, and it works sometimes. We'll have a look at another one where it wouldn't work as well, but you know, sometimes is better than none of the time. Compare the previous one. We're looking at the middle trips receiver. Ball is on the full line. So compare the previous one with this one, where the contact also happens at 4.9 yards. So this would be a legal block, but here the receiver actually ends up straddling the line as he's lying on the ground. So here it's not as clear cut that the block was legal as compared to the previous one where he was lying, you know, short of the full line. So here it would be dangerous to say that simply because he is lying across the line, then the block also happened across the line. So it's a trick to use. It's a guideline, but it certainly is not a 100% indicator of what happened. And it also depends on how much the receiver is moving forward. I mean, if he comes flying in, then there's a bigger chance that he will be over the line after the play, even though the block happened at 4.9. But in any case, here this would be a legal block. But if you ended up calling it, I could certainly understand it just based on the way the receiver is lying on the ground after the play. Here we're looking at the slot back at the top of the screen. Line of scrimmage is the +1, so that's our reference. It's not even going to be close here. But this is actually a legal play because there is no contact. Now, even though he manages to impede the cornerback's path to the runner, if there is no contact, there is no foul. So this is low and it's beyond 5 yards, but it is a legal, I can't even say it's a legal block because there is no block, but in any case, it is a legal play. We're looking at the far slot back, and the line of scrimmage is the +1. And here again, the block is around 4 yards, so this is a legal block, and he even lands inside of the 5 yards, or right at the 5-yard mark. So both of our trick would work here if we have any doubts if this is before 5 yards. So again, legal play. We're looking in this play at the slot back at the top of the screen, and line of scrimmage is the full yard line, so our reference point is the white 50-yard line. And here we see a legal block happens at about 4 yards, and again, even though he rolls beyond 5 yards at the end, both the offensive player and the defensive player, when they go to the ground, are short of the 5-yard line. So again, our trick works if we have any doubts. So in this example, a legal block. Now we move to the offensive line, and we're looking at the guard away from the camera. So we're looking at this guy right here. He's going to come into the to the defensive backfield, so he'll be easier to pick up. But we notice also that the line of scrimmage is the full yard line, so we have our reference point here. And right there, A55 crosses his 5-yard line, and there he goes and blocks low. So that is certainly more than 5 yards down the field. The real question is, and the block may even be from the side, just based on the way that the defender's leg kicks out there at the end. But in any case, and for this purpose, the purposes of this tape, it certainly is more than 5 yards down the field. Now, who's going to see this? Backside wing would have a tough time seeing this. The umpire has a good view of this, but his focus, as you can probably tell, is in this area instead. So I would really challenge the deep officials to get involved in as soon as we see that this is a running play. We may start out with our own key, a receiver key, a tight end key. But when it turns into a run like this, we really need to try to get into more of a zone type coverage, where maybe the back judge would have a look at this. Maybe the backside wing could be looking at a wide angle to see this, because this is a tough play. Now, this one happens in front of the umpire. Sometimes they happen behind the umpire, which makes it impossible for him to get involved. So if the umpire can see it, great. If the backside wing can see it, great. But I really challenge our deep officials to try to get a more a wide angle to try to pick up some of these blocks, because this is illegal, and this is one that we need to catch. So here's an example of the deep officials taking on this challenge of covering zone down the field. Now, as you've probably guessed, this is way down the field. You look in the middle of the field, there's a block, and it turns into a low block, which is certainly more than 5 yards down the field. And we've got the back judge, we've got the deep wing across the field, we even have a wing on this side of the field calling this. But I included this just to illustrate how important it is for us to keep monitoring, to keep covering, and to keep the wide angle on everything that's happening, and look at these blocks. And as soon as there's something that goes low, obviously the 5-yard line is not critical here, but it's a question of covering the play and noticing the 5-yard or the low blocks down the field and calling it when needed. In this last play, we're looking at the tackle closest to the camera. Now, there's a tight end, so don't be fooled. It's the second guy in, and he's going to go to the linebacker level and do a low block. I even think it's from the front, but it's also within the 5-yard belt. So this is a legal block. And again, the umpire might get a look at this. It would be tough for the referee to look this far up. The near side wing is concerned with the catch, and the backside wing has other stuff. So really, for the back judge, he's starting out with the tight end, so he's in that area, and it's in that same area that this block happened. So I would challenge back judges to at least see this block, so that the fact that we don't call it isn't because we're lucky that it was legal, but it was because we saw it and we deemed it to be legal. So again, deep wings or deep officials, we need to get more involved in these linemen coming down the field and seeing these blocks, whether they're legal or not. We need to have an opinion on that. And that was this training tape. I hope you found something that you can use on the field.